Hello everyone and welcome. Today I'm going to continue with my Cape Cod Scrapbooking Workshop Kit Makeover, and I am now doing project 5 from this series. And I just looked this up on my website and this kit is still available to order, as are the Cape Cod card making stamp set and the Cape Cod scrapbooking stamp set. And you can still get this one with the thin cuts. And I'm also going to bring in some of these little die cut pieces that I had already pre-done. Unfortunately, this one's no longer available. But I wanted to bring in some stamping with this because I've used a lot of the die cuts and the stickers that came with this set. So you can see I've got some paper here. Now I have a bit of a confession. I did have 2 sheets of this one, but I had to use this on a kit for a customer and I needed 1 more sheet of this. So I had to steal it from the scrapbook layout. So if you've been following along and crafting along with me, you will have an extra sheet of this left over that you can make into either cards or another layout. So what I'm thinking of doing for this one is using this piece here, which is 5 1/4 by 9. I'm going to trim this in half, and then I'm going to trim this down to a 9-inch piece as well and cut that in half, because I think it would look rather cute if I have a wood element on this side. This piece in the middle, I'm planning on doing some stamping, and then I'm going to bring this wood element over to this side as well. So I've trimmed these pieces down. This one here is 9 inches by 2 5/8, and then these 2 pieces are 6 inches by 9 inches. So I'm going to put these in the middle like so, but when I'm looking at these pieces of paper here, they're getting lost a little bit going into the white. So I'm going to do some quick inking of the edges of these. I'm not going to use a blending brush because I want to keep the crispness of this pattern. I don't want to blend in too much with that. And I'm also going to be doing some stamping that will come out from the edges of these pieces of paper here. So I've just got Periwinkle ink here and I'm just going along the edges. This is the fastest way I know of creating a little bit of definition and a bit of inking around the edges rather than using a blending brush. Sometimes when I use a blending brush, if I want a crisp line, I end up going a little bit too much with it. So this for me is the quickest way of inking up the edges of a piece of paper. And then to make sure that it all flows, I'm actually going to do the same colour on these wood patterns as well. So I've got all of these inked up, and now what I'm going to determine is where I want my stamping to be. So I'm just going to put these back together a little bit, and you can see that there's a good definition now between the white and the white on the edges of these pieces of paper. So these areas here are where I'm going to do my stamping. So I'm just going to get my pencil and I'm going to draw a little line underneath the edge of here and underneath the edge of this one. I don't need to get my ruler out. I just know that what I'm going to stamp is going to come out from the edges. And I'm also going to center this so that I know where to stop. I don't want it going up above this piece of paper at all or down below this piece of paper. So you can see I've got my line here, and then I'm going to do the same thing for the left page as well. Using a Versamat makes it really easy to center things. This is 1 1/2 and 1 1/2 because it's a 9-inch piece. So 1 1/2 border on each edge here. So there's my top and there's my bottom piece. So I'll put these aside for now because I want to do this stamping direct onto the pieces of white daisy here. So I'm just going to flip my Versamat over. And I'm going to do my stamping with the Cape Cod card making, and I'm just going to use this stamp image here. This is actually a 3-piece set that fits in together. So this is the sky, this would be the water, and then this would be the sand. But I'm just using this section here to create some texture coming out from these edges. So what I'm going to do is just move this over just a little bit. I've got my Periwinkle ink, and I'm going to bring in just some white scrap paper because I want to do 2nd generation Periwinkle. This is a new stamp. I actually didn't get around to using it when the catalogue was current, but I'm really happy that this is still available. So I'm inking this up, and then I'm going to stamp off and stamp again. And this is going to give me some nice texture without it being too strong coming out of the side of the piece of paper. It's always good to do a little bit of a test, and I think this will work really well because I want to do stamping of a title on this as well. So I don't want the periwinkle to be too strong. So I just need to remember to stamp off. I'm going underneath where my pencil lines are, ink up again, and then I'm going to rotate. And I'm going to vary the width of this. So it's not going to be all straight all the way down. Each time I'm going to rotate my stamp, vary where it's going. It doesn't need to be perfectly stamped at all. I love how this has a bit of texture in it. So I'm just building up the layers. And I'm going to go right down to the bottom. Now I'm going to do this bottom one first, because I know that's where I want to stop. And then I'm just going to bring in a post-it note and go over top of, which side will I do? I'm going to go over top of this side. I'm going to rotate this, and then I'm going to come in and stamp above. So I've got it here and all the way down. Now I'm going to repeat that for the left side as well. I've got all my stamping done, and what I want to do now is add a little bit of texture. I want to add some splatters to this, so I'm just going to put some periwinkle ink straight down onto my all-purpose mat. I want some fairly big splatters, so I'm using this brush here. I'm just going to add some water to my periwinkle ink, and then I'm going to just splash this across this area here, and it just creates a gorgeous amount of splatter, and I think gives a beautiful ocean sort of feel to the layout, seeing as I'm scrapbooking summer vacation and beach photos on this layout. So now that I've done the right side, I'm going to do exactly the same thing to the left, and this doesn't take very long to do at all, and using the same ink color on top of the stamping works really well. I've got my pattern pieces adhered, and now you can see the effect that I was going for with the stamping coming out from the edges of this paper here and then the splatters. I think it works really well. So what I'm going to do now is stamp my title direct onto this area here. So my title is going to come from the Cape Cod Scrapbooking, and I'm just going to stamp it just like it is laid out here. Now you could separate this out and use one of these as a title on a page. You don't have to use all three of them, but I quite like how it looks laid out here on the actual stamp carrier sheet. So I'm going to start with the playing in the sand, and I'm going to do that down in this bottom edge here, and then I'm going to have it work up this way. So I'm going to start with Toffee ink, and I'll just move this over a little bit so that you can see me stamping a little bit better. Now I like to walk my stamps over the ink pad rather than just pressing down in the middle, and you want to make sure that you don't have any ink on the outside edges here when you're stamping, especially direct onto your page, because you don't want that to transfer to your finished piece. So now I'm just leaving that on there for a little bit to make sure that the ink transfers, and I love how this looks. So now I just need to clean this stamp set off. And then I'm going to bring in Soaking Up the Sun. Now I was toying with having this all stamped in different colours. If I was doing this straight onto white, I probably would, but because I've got my distressed piece coming out from the edge here, I've decided that I'm going to keep it all with Toffee ink because it does stand out quite well against the Periwinkle second generation stamping. So I'm just going to line this up and then make sure that I leave it on there with firm enough pressure for everything to adhere to the white daisy. You don't want to push down too hard because this is a fairly fine font and you don't want it to smoosh out. So now for the last piece of my title. I love how this looks with the bit of periwinkle stamping in the background. It's such a gorgeous set, and as I said before, you can choose to just use one of these pieces to be your title rather than all three, or you could use them separated on a page. You don't have to stack them up on top of each other. I'm going to bring in some photo holders here, and I'm thinking this would be a good spot to have a great 4x6 photo. So this will be like the hero photo. There's only going to be one photo on this side, and then I think I'll bring in 2 supporting 3x3 photos and also a 3x4 so that I can have a landscape style photo here. Or I might even bring in a 4x6 across there. I think that works quite well. I quite like sometimes having a piece of pattern paper like this that is a featured theme on the page and having the photos come off the edge of that into this stamping here rather than having everything contained within this section. I think it works quite well to have things coming off the edges. And I'm going to use white mats on these rather than a coloured mat so that it will stand out against the pattern paper and also against the stamping. So these are effectively going to be my photo mats. And then all I need to do is trim my photos down. And then with my journaling, I'm going to do that on a clear shipping label and type that up and probably put it over the top of this wood element here. And then I need to bring in some embellishments. Now I've got a little tray here of various items from these stamp sets. So I had a little bit of a play with these when I first got them and inked a few up. And I just want to show you how gorgeous do these look. The definition in these images, it's one stamp. It's not a layered stamp. You just get all this light and shade just from doing one inking up. I'm not going to use the Lagoon. I'm going to stick with Periwinkle, but I might have 2 different coloured crabs, I think. So I'm just going to play around with where I want these positioned. And then I've also got some of these shell elements here. As I said, this one unfortunately is no longer available. Because that has sold out, I know many of you have got this already. And what I've done is inked these up with Toffee ink, just a little bit, to give them a little bit more definition. So I'll just put that tray off to the side and I'm just going to play around with how I want things positioned on my page. I'm not sure if I'm going to use a mixture. These ones here I've inked up with some Periwinkle ink and a blending brush and then done the same sort of effect with the splattering that I've done here. I'm not sure if I'm going to use a mixture of these with the Toffee pieces that I've got or if I'm going to just keep with the one colour. I actually don't mind having 2 different tones of these shells. I think that's working quite well. I think the seahorse is going to sit quite naturally here looking into the title, and then I'll have some shells tucked around and maybe a little crab coming out here. So it's just a case of working out what you want to feature on your page and how many embellishments you want to bring in. The thing that I do consider is having a little cluster like this with things touching each other so that they look like they belong. And as I said, I quite like the mix of these different coloured shells and elements. Odd numbers always work really, really well too, and repetition works well. So whatever you've done to one side, you want to do to the other. And then I've got some that I can place around these elements up here as well. Now the Periwinkle isn't standing out too much, but if I put a larger shell with it here, then these do pop a little bit more, and I do love the subtlety, and I do want a group of 3 going across. So I think this works quite well to have a little group of 3 here. Now I do want to show you how beautifully these sets stamp. So I'm just going to ink him up and then stamp him down so that you can see how this graduation of ink works. It's just absolutely stunning that you can have a stronger depth of Periwinkle and then a lighter depth of Periwinkle. It's almost like you've done layered stamping, but you've only stamped once. And the same effect happens with the crab as well. So I'm just going to bring in some Toffee ink. So here we go. I'll just stamp him down. And you get all the beautiful light and shade with just one stamping. It really is clever how this all works together so well. And then I'm going to bring in some Shortbread ink and I'm going to do a couple of pieces of the coral. Now I know coral is usually a brighter colour, but I want to keep with this colour palette. So I think Shortbread is going to be a nice subtle look that I can put behind these elements here. And once again, you get light and shade. So the outline is a little bit darker in places, and then there is shading. So while I'm doing the die cutting, I just wanted to mention that the creative design team have opened registration for our 31 Days of Christmas card event, which is happening in October. So from October 1st right through to the 31st, you will have a video each and every day. So don't miss out. You can register now. I'm showing a graphic right here. You can see there is an early bird coupon code that gives you a discount. That is available through 20th of September. After that, the price will go up to $39.95 US. We will have a video each and every day showcasing new techniques, new Christmas cards, and we can never just stop at one card. We will be using a wide variety of products, so you will not just get one card, you'll probably get 2 or 3 cards each and every day showcasing how you can use the technique or the style of card that we are creating. We also have 3 fabulous guest designers joining us this year, and I'm very excited and can't wait to see what they have in store for us all as well. So I'll have the link for everything below in the description. Make sure you click see more so that you can click on that and go and register for this fun event. It is run in a private Facebook group. If you can't keep up or if you're away, don't stress. You can come back and watch them at any time. I've adhered most of the elements down here for the clusters, but I've got a little trick to show you with this conch shell. But before I do that, I'm just going to hold this up to the camera so that you can see all the layers here. The crab I've put up on the thin 3D foam tape as opposed to the thick foam tape. So that just gives it a little bit of lift and enables things to be tucked around underneath it. And I went through my stash of acrylic shapes and picked out some of these little starburst elements because I think they work really well with this nautical theme and this under the sea sort of theme here with the bits of coral and the crab and the shells all around it. I think they work really, really well. So I've also done the clusters on the top of this photo here. You can see these two, the starfish and the shell, come over the top of the photo. So that will frame it all quite nicely. And then using the coral pieces here as like a base element for everything to live. I think that works really well. But when it came to this bottom right cluster here, I wanted to put this shell on here, but you can see that it doesn't quite look right because you can see other elements through it. So I need to create a little back element to this. I'm going to bring in my scratch paper and I'm going to ink up this little white piece of paper that I've got left over, the white cardstock. And I'm just going to use Toffee ink. But I think you'll agree that's going to look better on this cluster if I do back that a little bit. And I'm going to trim this out, place it on top here, and when I put that down on the page, I think that looks so much better having that filled in. I actually did it up here as well. It was a little bit lighter, the inking that I've done with this one. This shell's a little bit darker. So I'm going to adhere this piece to the back of the shell. And then I can trim off the excess with my scissors. So I'm just going to bring those in and snip off the little elements that I don't need. And I think I'm going to pop this one up on some tape as well. So I'm just going to quickly put some of this thin 3D foam tape behind this shell, and it's going to be partially over the crab. And by layering things up this way, it's just like, I think, looking down into the ocean. Things are tucked in behind, things hide behind each other. And I think this works really well with that backing piece behind there. Just a little attention to detail. I am going to hang this off the page a little bit and then turn this over. I'm going to trim off the pieces of the coral and the shell that are overhanging the edge of my page. And because I'm using the non-stick microtip scissors, adhesive doesn't stick to these as much. You can see that's moving well, even though I've cut through some foam tape and adhesive. And I just need to do the same thing on this side. I do like trimming off things that are hanging over the edge of a page. There's just something about that I think brings the layout together. When you push things down over the edges of the page, it works really, really well. So there it is, all done. All I need to do is my journaling here and add my photos in. I do like how the mixture of the toffee and the shortbread shells and the periwinkle shells all work together rather than having them all one colour. And this little seahorse just nestled in amongst the title there and then leading down into this cluster. He works so well up against this title. So this is project 5 that I have created out of the Cape Cod Scrapbooking Workshop kit. I still have some more paper left over, so I think I might have to create another layout if you'd like to see that. That would make 6 scrapbook layouts out of 1 Scrapbook Workshop kit, and I'm still loving playing with this gorgeous paper. It really is absolutely beautiful. So if you haven't ordered it already, check out the link below. You don't want to miss out on it. Thank you so much for watching. As always, happy crafting and bye for now.